What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about The Night at the Museum. I'm incredibly happy to have my friend over here from his channel, Pillot Productions. I highly recommend you guys check out his channel. He's got tons of great content on movies and TV and all that kind of great stuff that you guys see here on my channel, but he has his own little flavor on his channel. I like him. He's kind of this laid back, cool dude, this everyday dude that I really just enjoy the way he talks about movies. He's a very cool guy to watch, and I highly recommend you guys check out his channel. The link to his channel will be down below in the description box. This is the first time he's featuring on my channel, so a big thanks to him for being in this video to talk about The Night at the Museum. We're going to hear from him in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and get into my thoughts on this movie. This film stars Ben Stiller, Robin Williams, Ricky Gervais, Owen Wilson, and so many others, and is a story about a father who's kind of down on his luck. He's in between jobs. You know, it's kind of caused a little bit of some issues between him and his son and him and his ex-wife. Luckily, his ex-wife is super supportive and is just like, listen, just get a job so that you're able to pay for a good place so you can see your son more often. You know, she's super cool about it, and I really always kind of enjoyed that. And according to Pillot Productions, who we'll be hearing from in just a little bit, he mentioned that this was actually based on a book. I had no idea this was based on children's books, so I went into this when I was younger for the first time, pretty just, you know, open. I had no idea, no connection to anything. I had no idea it was based on any source material, so it was nice to learn that. And what I could say right out of the gate is that when I saw this movie for the first time, it was back before we had the 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, like early preview screenings that we see for movies now on Thursdays. And I remember going to the IMAX that was down south in Miami with my mom and my sister, and we waited hours to get our seats. This is before you could, you know, pick your seats in the theaters. You just got the ticket and you had to go. And yeah, I remember this movie very, very fondly. I had a great time with it that first time I saw it. And it's a movie I've enjoyed every time since. I'm going to go ahead and say right now, this is probably one of my favorite Ben Stiller films. I don't know what it is about this film, but there's just something about the way that he performs in this film that's just so believable and likable for me. Now, what I will say is this film definitely has its issues. It has its holes in its plot. It's not 100% perfect, but I love the concept of this movie, and I enjoy kind of the journey throughout the course of this film. So like I mentioned, Ben Stiller plays this down on his luck father who's kind of struggling to find work, and he eventually gets the opportunity to become a night security guard at the Smithsonian. And that's when he's introduced to these 3 very interesting older security guards who are about to retire, and he's going to become the new security guard. And yeah, he's really excited for the opportunity to work, and he's given this very unusual list of things he needs to do at night while he's watching over the museum. And at first he kind of brushes it off, but on his first night he notices that the T-Rex bones, the statue or the fossils of the T-Rex, the big one that was right there in the entrance of the museum, is missing all of a sudden. And when he goes around the corner, he ends up finding it alive. And not too long into the film, he realizes that everything in the entire museum, all of the exhibits, whether it's stuffed animals, statues, mannequins of characters or people that, you know, actually existed in history, all those things came to life. And now he's in this museum having to guard it at night while everything, whether it's dangerous or not, is now alive, and he's gonna have to kind of deal with it. So that's where he starts to refer to this list and start to realize what he has to do to get through the night. And yeah, you know, at first he's freaked out, and over the course of the film, he starts to get better at it, starting to figure out what to do. He starts to build, you know, relationships with some of these people, like Robin Williams' character, who plays Theodore Roosevelt. And of course, these are all just statues and plastic figures and, you know, stuffed animals. But over the course of the film, he grows this bond with all of these individual exhibit pieces. And yeah, you know, this is a very silly film. It's made for kids. It's a very over-the-top concept, but I have always thoroughly enjoyed this. I enjoyed it back in the day as a kid when I saw it in theaters, and it's a movie I still enjoy today. Now, I definitely have my issues with it, but before we get into my thoughts on the negatives, let's go ahead and hear what Pillot Productions had to say about this one.
First and foremost, I just want to say a huge thank you to Anthony Perez for letting me be a part of this collaboration. I have been a huge fan of his channel for a very long time, so to finally be working with him is pretty cool, to say the least. But without further ado, let's jump into today's film, which is, of course, Night at the Museum. Directed by Shawn Levy and starring Ben Stiller, this film is an adaptation of the 1993 children's book of the same name that follows a security guard at the Museum of Natural History who witnesses all of the exhibits come to life at night. And it's actually kind of funny that I remember watching this film in theaters so vividly. I don't remember every film that I've seen in theaters, but for some reason, this film, I remember like sitting down and going to get the popcorn. I was watching it with my dad. December 2006. Like, I remember so many details of it. But it's the only time that I've seen the film. Or the only time I've seen the film prior to this. When Anthony asked me to review it, I was like, yeah, sure. I'll check it out again. And it's strange because the two experiences that I've seen with this film, or the two experiences that I've had with this film so far, couldn't be any more different. Okay, when I was a kid watching it, I remember it being so magical. Watching it as an adult, while it is still good in some ways, for the most part, I found it to be kind of lame. Now, I cannot emphasize this enough. There is a lot to really enjoy about this film. Really. It's not awful. I just found a lot more problems with it watching it as an adult. For instance, I think the best thing this film has going for it is its premise. While it is based off of a children's book, I think the premise is wholly original. While I can't confirm this, I do think it's interesting that after this film came out, that we did start to see some very other similar works based on it. Some very interesting genre takes on it. Some of you guys, well, most of you probably won't remember this because it's like buried now. That god-awful Kevin James movie with all the animals that obviously they're living already, but after the park closes, it's called The Zookeeper. I don't know if I said that, but where they start to talk after the park closes. Is so dumb, so dumb. I guess you could also say it's kind of like a ripoff of Dr. Dolittle, but I never saw it. But to me, it, like, even watching the trailer, it totally gave me like Night at the Museum vibes. Also, Five Nights at Freddy's, I think. While I do know that the lore of that game and that whole franchise runs very deep, I do think of it more as a horror take on Night at the Museum, even though the two couldn't be any more different from each other. But yeah, this film's premise is definitely one of the highlights. The way that Shawn Levy tackles it is very interesting. In addition to the premise, I think the special effects also kind of work hand in hand with that. For instance, the T-Rex that I think kind of sparks it all for Ben Stiller's character. That's the very first thing he sees come to life. Still looks very good. Extremely good, even after all these years. What, it's been 15 years since the film came out, and yeah, it looks seamless. The CGI looks seamless. Also, Owen Wilson and Steve Coogan as miniatures, still pretty good. And speaking of Owen Wilson and Steve Coogan, they are only a fraction of this film's very talented cast. Here you have Robin Williams, a Ricky Gervais in his prime, I'd argue. Rami Malek, before Mr. Robot, before the Oscar. Almost looking like a baby face, honestly. Dick Van Dyke, Paul Rudd. You even have the late and great Charlie Murphy in a cameo. Watching this film again, I was so fascinated to see all of these faces and to wonder, like, how did Shawn Levy pull all this off? But then again, 2006 was a totally different time for so many different people. But yeah, and watching this film, honestly, I think the biggest problem for me was that when you actually aren't a kid being fascinated by, you know, all the exhibits coming to life, you realize that there are just a lot of plot holes. And I think one of the film's biggest plot holes is the fact that Ben Stiller's character is brought on board to replace not one, but 3 security guards. And that's all fine and dandy, but it didn't dawn on me till the very end of the film. Like, is he expected to be there every night all year long? I'm no HR rep, but I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I don't know. Now, I know it's so weird, but watching it as an adult, that's literally one of the first things that I thought. I said, hey, shouldn't he have help? Is he gonna be the person like 7 days a week? I don't know. it seems kind of silly when you think about it, but at the same time, when you think about it, it's like, oh crap, but they probably should have addressed that. And I do think they kind of addressed it in one of the sequels. I think that he does get like help. I remember Jonah Hill appearing in some capacity, but once again, it's been a minute since I've seen this franchise. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments. Also, there's just one scene that really bothered me. It takes place the morning after the second night that Ben Stiller's character works the museum. His son just casually just strolls in with his friends early in the morning, and he's like, hey guys, let's see if my dad can give us a tour. And then they witness him like get fake fired. He's like fired and then rehired. It's like this whole thing. But my thing is, like, first and foremost, it's early in the morning. You have school in a couple of hours. How long do you think this tour is going to be? Realistically speaking. And also, like I said, this is early in the morning. The museum is not open for business yet at all. So these kids just walk in totally unchecked. Not saying that they could be threats, but still, I mean, obviously, Ben Stiller's character deserves to be fired because he's definitely not doing his job at this point. And that's another thing. Going back to what I said earlier, like, they never show, like, who he's supposed to trade off shifts with. Was he, at that point, supposed to trade off for, like, the morning security guard? Is there another security guard? These things are never addressed in the film. And while I do think Shawn Levy did that on purpose because he just wants us to focus on everything that happens in the museum at night, I mean, that is the title of the film after all, and that is where a bulk of the film's action happens, it makes it harder, really hard, to suspend your disbelief for this film. Because even though there are so many fantastical things happening in the museum, it also kind of feels very unrealistic, just the kind of world that these characters live in. I mean, it feels to me that a lot of these characters, well, it's very apparent actually that a lot of these characters live in a world free of consequence. And I think the ending reinforces that too. The three villains, which end up being the three security guards that Ben Stiller's character replaces coming back to try and steal the tablet that brings everything to life, face no consequence for their actions at all. In fact, the entire ending of the film just falls apart, in my opinion. First and foremost, after they're caught, they just give up, and we don't see them again till a post-credit scene where it's revealed that Ben Stiller doesn't give them up, and then they kind of get their jobs back. Also, Ben Stiller gets fired because of the havoc that happens in the museum, but then he gets his job back because apparently business is booming again. And, you know, everybody's coming to the Museum of Natural History, which when I was a kid, I ate up. But watching it now as an adult, I was like, no, it was never established that the museum is in any danger. It's not like it needs the business or else it's going to close down. It provides a resolution to a problem that's never established, ever. And then at the same time, it's like, Ben Stiller's fired 3 times. You would think by the 3rd time, which legit is not his fault at all, he would come forward with the truth. I mean, he has no problem showing the clerk that works at his job or his son that these things come to life. Why wouldn't he show his boss? I mean, at that point, so many people in the film know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting a little flustered here. I feel my blood pressure getting high. Okay, so the general consensus. I like Shawn Levy. I've seen a vast majority of his work, and I think that at the very least, all of his films are okay. I don't think he's ever made something that was just so god-awful that I couldn't watch, or that I hated. And the Night at the Museum is on the same level, okay? If you would have asked me 15 years ago, I probably would have gave you a different answer, but as of right now, the way it stands, I think Night at the Museum is just an okay film. I think that Shawn Levy's definitely a better producer, or that he has a better eye as a producer. He's gone on to produce things like Arrival or Stranger Things, so he knows what it takes to make something of really high quality, and that most critics will just love and gravitate towards. But that's not, in my opinion, the kind of films that he's interested in making. He's definitely more interested in making family-friendly and, you know, just nice core content. But yeah, going back to Night at the Museum, that is very family friendly and nice core. It's not the best thing that he's done. I think he has a couple of other films under his belt that are far better and, you know, far deeper, far magicaler, if that's a word. But this film is just okay. And you know what? I watched it with my son. I think it is a great family film. I think it's worth watching and passing along to future generations. But will I revisit it again in the future? Probably not. While it does have its fun moments and it was certainly made with good intentions, I think the film's biggest problem is that it favors convenience over common sense. And as a result, some of the inanimate objects that come to life seem a bit more realistic than most of the character choices. And for all of that, I'm going to give this film 2.5 stars.
This is so not worth $11.50 an hour.
Thank you so much again, Anthony, for letting me be a part of this collaboration. If you guys liked what you saw today, please make sure to check out my channel, Pillot Productions. I'm pretty sure he'll leave a link in the description box below. But yeah, what did you think about this film, Anthony?
A big thanks to you, my friend, for being here in this video. Loved hearing your thoughts on it. And yeah, I like that you were able to watch this with your son and kind of just have a good time with it. It seems like we're pretty much on the same wavelength. I think I enjoy this film a little bit more than you, but like you said, there are enjoyable elements, but there's definitely some big plot holes in this movie. There are plenty of moments while you're watching this where you can't help but be like, that doesn't really make sense. And as I was watching it this last time, I felt the exact same way. I was just like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Or there's just a bunch of moments that make you scratch your head and make you go like, what? So it's kind of one of those movies where you kind of have to just sit back and recognize that this kind of lives in a heightened reality, not only because the concept is fantastical and over the top, but at the end of the day, this is a movie that beyond its concept is living in a heightened reality to the point where you kind of have to, you got to push some of those negative things aside, some of those plot holes aside. If not, you're not going to be able to enjoy this film. This is a movie that I think if you're, you got kids, if you're a younger person watching this and you've never seen it before, I highly recommend it. There's fun to be had here. If you're a grown adult and this doesn't sound interesting to you, you may not enjoy the film, but if it does sound interesting to you, I do highly recommend checking it out. I think it's a fun, good time. I really enjoy Pillot Productions for being here in this video. Overall, a good time, a little silly, a little over the top, but I really enjoy Ben Stiller in this movie, and I enjoy the cast overall. It's always great to see Robin Williams in pretty much anything nowadays, ever since his passing, and I've always really enjoyed him as Theodore Roosevelt in these Night at the Museum films. So, yeah, this is a movie that I think, even though I have some negatives that I can say make the film feel like it has holes and it's not perfect on a script level, I think on an overall level, this is just a fun ride. It's one of those movies that by the time it's over, I just feel like, yeah, that was a good time. I enjoyed it. And that's kind of how I've always felt about this. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure in some ways, but also I think it's also a really good movie. I enjoy the effects. I enjoy the cinematography. And yeah, it's got a really great cast. I only named a handful, but people like Rami Malek are in this film as well before he got big. We heard Pillot say that as well. And yeah, this is just a film I do highly recommend, and I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Also, I will say it's probably the best of the trilogy. I think there's 3 of them. And I do look forward to revisiting the other 2 at some point and doing a review. But I think out of the 3 of them, this is probably my favorite of them. I think it was the most grounded for how insane this concept ends up getting, even though there are some fun cameos and some bigger character moments and other characters that appear in the other ones that are pretty fun, you know what I mean? So I really enjoyed the concept. I enjoy Ben Stiller in the film. I enjoy the rest of the cast. And by the end of it, it's just one of those movies that kind of leaves a smile on my face. And I never really feel bothered by some of the glaring negatives that the film may have. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Please, down below in the description box, go check out Pillot Productions. Give them some love. Let them know I sent you. And yeah, hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.